Okay, so cropping. Once we've cropped all three of our exposures down to a square, notice that I haven't saved them. The ones that I saved are before they were cropped, so that if I decided I wanted a different kind of cropping, I could go back and redo it. Holding down Shift, rotating, finding the composition you want. And you can agonize over all of these decisions, but ultimately, what are we looking for in these exposures? We're looking for a bright light, a dark dark, and a lot of those gray values in between. We're looking for not a lot of area that's lost. Ideally, none of it would be lost, meaning that there's textural content everywhere, in the shadows, in the highlights. Even when they look pretty bright, like on this fabric, you can see the texture of the fuzz. And that makes it a nicely balanced exposure. Okay, so I've got them now like this. Now, I'm going to go into each one, and I'm going to say image size, and I need to force them to all be the same size in order to fit onto one format. So what we're going to do is say image size and check resample. That allows us to change the number of pixels. But pay attention to what your native image size is. So this cropped image is 8.85 megapixels. I'm going to change it to 3 inches by 3 inches by 350 pixels per inch. And I want the image size that I end up with, in this case, to be smaller than what I started with. Smaller than or equal to. I don't want it to be larger, because if I have to force there to be more pixels than there were before, then the computer has to make up information. And when the computer has to make up pixels, it makes them soft and blurry around the existing pixels. So you get a lot of digital distortion and noise. So shrinking it for this process is okay. I say okay. Now I go over and I do it to this one. Image size, resample. This one is 9 megapixels, going down to 3.3 by 350, which will be our standard lab resolution. It's a high resolution, but it will work great for our printing. Now I've got 2, the same resolution, and my last one, image size, 3 inches by 3 inches by 350. And Joe, I can anticipate your question, because I think your camera probably doesn't have that high a resolution, right? So when you crop it, it's going to get a lower memory. And for this assignment, that's okay. That's why these are exercises. But you're going to see the advantages of having the higher resolution images through doing this. All right, so I've got 3. Now, I'm still not done. As crazy as that is. Now I want to check the levels of what I cropped, right? And the quality is good, and if I actually view it at actual pixels, so if I say view 100%, I can see all the pixels there. They're nice and clearly defined. But just to check, I'm not going to make a duplicate, because these are all going to get flattened together, and I'm not going to save this as its own file. But I'm going to say image adjustment levels. And now look at the difference in my histogram, right? Because it's just my cropped area, I want to have nice peaks in the middle. And then this worries me a little bit. That says that this is just solid black. But I knew that that was lost information. But I think I need it for the composition as a whole. So I'm pretty good with this. But what I could play with is, do I like it a little bit on the lighter side of the midtones? Do I like it a little bit on the darker side of the midtones? And maybe I just want it just a tad, just a smidgen on the darker side. I know the projector makes that look way too dark, but my screen shows me what's really going on. Just a smidge, just a touch. Like maybe right there. Now, can you even tell the difference? Barely, but I think that helps hone in the values for me. So here I'm going to do the same thing. zoom in a little bit so I can see it. If you don't want to see that annoying crop box, just go to a different tool. And I say image adjustment levels. And now I see, so this one, nice strong peak, but you see it's really underrepresented in the lights. So I'm going to push my midtones a little bit more on the brighter side. And then darken my darks a little bit. Not so that I lose visual information. I'm going right to the edge. But I also don't want to do this, right, and lose all of this content. So that just balances out the histograms a slight bit. And that's a more dramatic difference. That really helps bring out that contrast. Because remember, what are we going for? We are going for our exemplar. We are trying to see if we can master contrast, both in our exposures and in our processing, to match the exemplar that we chose. I'm not sure where mine ended up, embarrassingly. But mine was of that claw. I know, actually I do know where I have it. I have it up here. So it's not a bad idea to go check that exemplar every once in a while. And it will help you be bolder in your decisions. So there's my contrast exemplar, right? And that's being pretty bold in how strong it's making its shadows and its highlights. And it's definitely intensifying its levels. All right. Last one. Just do one more levels pass now that it's cropped. Same thing, nice mound. Very strongly diverse, but I think I want to shift the midtones just a little bit brighter to even up this, and maybe shift my darks just maybe not. So this will be just a little bit more lopsided, but still very strong contrast. And then you can see, by brightening it up, it actually increased the contrast a little bit. It helped me see more of that value range than keeping it dark. All right, now they're all the same size. They're all 3 by 3 inches by 350. Now I need to bring them all into the same format. And to do that, I'm going to flatten them all. So I say layer, flatten image, layer, flatten image, layer, flatten image. And if I want to see all three at the same time, I can say window, arrange, float all in windows. And then I can hit F3 on my computer, or even F9. So I can see them all, and I can decide, okay, which one of these three do I want to have in the middle? And for the three that I have, what do you guys think? If I line these up side by side, which one should go in the middle?
I think the bottom right should go in the middle.
The bottom right?
Yeah.
I can agree with that, just because it feels very different than these two.
Yeah, because
right?
the other two have a lot more.
Yeah, there's a lot more organic movement going on. And so this will kind of be bookended by that. So let's try that. So you can always change your mind, but you're going to pick the one you think should go in the middle. You're going to make a duplicate of it, and then we are going to grow your paper size around it in order to accommodate the other photos. So we say image canvas size, and we are going to make our width 12 inches and our height 9 inches with a white extension. And then you hit Command 0 or Command minus to fit it all on the screen. And the reason we did a duplicate is so we can make our background. So I select my background layer and I say Edit Fill. We just make that solid white. But we have our first exposure floating on top like that. Then you want to make sure you have your rulers turned on by hitting Command R if they're not on. And using the Move tool, selecting your first layer, you're going to move guides and stick them to the edges of your cropped exposure. Okay. Then, I know it sounds like a lot, you're going to hit Command apostrophe, which will turn off your grid. You can also do it under View and Show Grid. And I want you to have a 1/2 inch space between each of your photos. So using that grid, you'll bring another guide and put that at the 1/2 inch mark on the left and right of your initial exposure. Photoshop is not the best layout program, but using these tools, we can use it for that purpose fairly effectively. Now, I've flattened my exposures. I simply use the Move tool and drag and drop them into place. And they'll snap into place. And once they're in this file, I don't need to save them anymore, because this will be my finished project file, which has all 3 cropped exposures in it. Okay, so the PSD files we're saving are your full exposures processed, and then it will be this project. And now I can look at it, and I can turn my guides off by hitting Command semicolon, or by going to View and saying Show and unchecking guides. And I can see how the eye movement is working through it. And so my eye kind of comes in, and arcs around, and takes all of this in. And yeah, it kind of works. I can experiment with moving them around. With the Move tool, I can try this one on this side, this one on this side. I can even try rotating them. We crop them to a square so we can do things like flipping them in place. Seeing if that helps or not. But I think this works fairly well. So I'm going to leave them in this arrangement. And we're going to get better at all of these skills as we go through the semester. So don't agonize over every decision. All right, once you have that, you're going to save that as your name, assignment 1, contrast. As a PSD to the desktop, it will save all these different exposures. What I'll be looking for when I grade them is that the processing is even across all of them, so one of them doesn't look more brown than the other or more blue, and that you have a nice value range from white to black without losing visual information, and a lot of those gray values in between, right? At least it's some major part of it, if not throughout all of it. A black square here or there that helps the composition isn't going to disqualify that you have the values. Now, to upload it, we say File, Save As, a JPEG format, keep the same name to the desktop, and then you just want to make sure that it's no more than 5 megapixels, which shouldn't be a problem for this. This is made to print 8 by 10. So we say OK. And then you find those on your desktop. You have your JPEG for online, and then you have your finished assignment, which you want to mark and keep because you might use that for printing for the midterm or for your final portfolio. Then I navigate to the course photo bucket, to the right library, under photo assignments, assignment 1, and they're just waiting for you. And we move that in right from the desktop, looking for that JPEG image. And you're only going to upload one. And once you see it there, you click on it. It will go to the end. And then you title it with your name, just like we did with our exercises. Hit the check mark, and you're done. It's submitted by the critique deadline.